Hello, hi, it's Henry the computer guy, and you're welcome to our lesson number 35. And in today's lesson, we are going to be talking about the input-output computer hardware. So these ones actually combine both the input and again the output. So they become input/output computer hardware. Remember in the previous lessons, we talked about the input and we said that these ones help us to feed data into the computer, whereas the output help us to get out our processed information or data out of the computer. So these ones are actually combining the two. They do both the input and the output. So they are telling us that these are devices which have both the capabilities of entering data into the computer and displaying information from the computer to the user. So let's look at some of the examples. So we have a touch screen. For example, if you have a smartphone, that interface or screen where you always enter the data from, for example, you're typing in, so it's where again view or see the information from that you're doing. So it is both input and output. Then we come to what we call a fax machine. A fax machine has a scanner and at the same time has a printer. Whenever you need to send a document to someone, you will need to scan that document. It becomes an image, then you send it to the other person. Then whenever you receive, let's say a fax, you will be able to use what we call a printer because the message comes out as a printout. So it is both input, output because it has a printer and the scanner at the same time. Then we talk about what we call a modem. A modem in full is specifically modulation, demodulation. And how is a modem related to what we call input-output? A modem is related to that because it is considered as an input and at the same time output because it sends data or uploads or outputs and receives data. For example, download or the input. So it is considered both input and output because uploading is output and downloading is input. Are we together? So it is a modem. Then we have the headgear, and we looked at this one's under the gaming input devices. We say that it has somewhere where you can view the information from and the speakers where you can listen from. So it is both input and output. Then we have a sound card and a audio sound card or audio card. This one specifically helps us to enter sound into the computer, that is input, and get out sound from a computer, and that is actually going to be the output. So it is both input and output. Then we have the interactive whiteboard. These ones can help us, for example, to interact with those screens by entering data, and at the same time it has some speakers which give out the sound. So it is both input and output. For example, that is a touch screen. You have a smartphone. We have a headgear. It has somewhere you can view from and again where you can listen from. So it is another one. We have the interactive whiteboards whereby these ones actually have where we can touch, for example, touch interface and the speakers which give us some information. Then we have a fax machine. Actually, it has a scanner and a printer at the same time. So those are the input output. We continue. So when we look at again the input output, we have set here. This side they have given us that we have input and this side we have output. So that means that we can have a circle here having input. Then in the middle we are going to be having those ones that can act as again input and at the same time acting as the output. So this side we have the input, keyboard, optical pen, we can have the joystick, we can have the scanner, barcode readers, we can have the digital camera, many of them are here, the modem, the fax, the webcam, the touch screen, the pen drive and others. Then when we come to again output, we can have the headphones, we can have the headsets, screen, the printers, the plotters and others. Then at the same time, we can have these ones. They can act as the output at the same time. So in the middle here is where we have the input output. So they can fall in either the input and again on the side of output. So we can have the digital camera, we can have the touch screen, we can have the CD, fax, modem, and others we have not talked about. So let's continue. And we are going to be talking about what we call computer peripheral. So when someone talks of a peripheral, what do they actually mean? The components or the external components we can hook or attach onto our computers are the ones we can call the peripherals. And they're telling us that whereas the above devices are standard input-output devices, some other devices are referred to as computer peripherals. Computer peripherals are any electronic device that can be hooked to a computer. We have some of the examples. We can have the speakers. You connect to your computer. You connect them outside. We can have the microphones. We can have the printers. We can have the scanners, digital cameras, joysticks, webcam, light pen, etc. Many of those components that we can connect or hook to our computer are the ones we call the computer peripherals. So we can have the projector, the printers, and others because as we have seen already them before. We continue. And let's talk about what we call the multifunctional peripherals. Having talked about a peripheral, let's talk about a multifunctional peripheral. And it's sometimes referred to as the MFP. So what is a multifunctional peripheral? It is a device that performs a variety of functions that would otherwise be carried out by separate peripherals. For example, it has a printer, it has a scanner. That means that we would have been having, for example, a printer separate and a scanner separate. But a multifunctional peripheral can have all of them at the same time. It can work as a fax machine. So it can combine all of them as one component. So it's the one we call a multifunctional peripheral. So as a rule, a multifunctional peripheral includes at least two of the following. It can be a printer, it can be having a printer, having a scanner, and having a photocopier, or having a fax machine. So whenever I have a component that has at least two of those ones that we have talked about below, it's termed as a multifunctional peripheral. So they're telling us that advantages of multifunctional peripheral devices are that it takes up less space. For example, instead of you buying 4 or 3 devices and put them there, they're going to consume much of your office space. But if you buy one as a multifunctional peripheral, it is going to reserve some of the space which would have been used for other devices or components. It is significantly less expensive than if you purchased each device separately. If you buy a multifunctional peripheral, it is far cheaper than buying each device separately or on its own. You buy a printer, you buy a scanner, you buy a photocopier, you buy a fax machine. So when you combine the cost of buying all of the 4 components, a multifunctional peripheral is far cheaper than that. The major disadvantage of the multifunctional or this device or machines is that if it breaks down, you lose all the functions. That means that if you lose it, the printer is not going to be working, the scanner is not going to be functioning, the photocopier is not going to be functioning, and the fax machine is not going to be working. That means that you're going to lose all jobs. You're going to lose the work that, for example, the jobs that you've been performing on this one device. How do you see? If you had one device at the same time, and if one fails, you can use another one. So if it is a multifunctional peripheral, the work is going to come to a standstill. So that is how it looks like, and I think you've seen these components or devices before. So it's the one we call a multifunctional peripheral. It has the component of a scanner, photocopier, and many others as we have talked about them. We continue. And we have an activity, which is activity 2.2. Remember, we are under chapter 2, and it is the second activity we are having, which is 2.2. So that makes it activity 2.2. And we are talking about the categories of computer hardware. So they are giving us the question 1. What is the difference between a soft copy and a hard copy? We have talked about this one. So I think you can now answer them. Give examples to support your answers. Then number 2, move around the computer laboratory or any office in your school and identify other computer hardware devices other than those ones we have mentioned in our previous figures. Summarize their details in terms of the name, the features they have, and the functions they have, and the categories they have. For example, I made for you an example. For example, we have the name, the feature, the function, and the category. So we have a projector. The feature, it has a lens. Then the function, it projects images for the audience. Then the category, it is categorized as an output device or hardware. Then question 3, identify at least one device in each category and demonstrate how it works. You can get a projector, you can get a digital camera, or any other that you feel you want to use. So thank you for watching. It's been Henry the Computer Guy. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share the link to other people who might need this content. So bye bye, I sign out. See you in the next video.